At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion for episode 258 with me, your host, Stephen Wallace. Today the focus is cricket and all things West Indies cricket with the show's cricketing expert, Roland Butcher. As many of you will know, Roland, born in Barbados, moved to England as a teenager and in 1980 became the first black player to play international cricket for England. Roland now lives in Barbados, but regularly comes back to the UK for media work. He is currently working for the BBC covering this year's county championship. Roland was until the end of 2023 a West Indies cricket selector. In this episode, Totally Shocked and Disappointed, Roland gives his reaction to the events in the Caribbean when his contract was not renewed. Roland adds his thoughts on the current state of West Indies cricket, together with some strong opinions on what the ICC need to do to maintain the competitiveness of international cricket. The show begins with Roland reflecting on the West Indies' remarkable Test victory at the end of January against Australia in Brisbane. Welcome back to the show, Roland, to chat about West Indies cricket and the recent news about your position as a West Indies selector.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Yeah, always a pleasure to chat to you, and looking forward to the discussion.
I'd like to start, though, with the 8-run win in Brisbane in January, the first win in Australia by the West Indies for 27 years. Was that even a surprise to you?
No. I guess I was not surprised that the team would be competitive, even though it was a very, very young, inexperienced team. Most commentators, and when I say commentators, I'm putting into this bracket persons who are not commentators, but because of their love of the game in the Caribbean, people think that they're commentators or they're coaches, and they know it better than anyone else. But when the team was selected, a lot of things were said in the Caribbean, sending lambs to the slaughter, and this and that, and we took a lot of stick on the street for selecting that team. But, in the circumstances, we had little choice because there was players opting out to go and play T20, T10 cricket in various places, South Africa, etc., etc. And, it was a case of really keeping faith with a group of guys who literally have been together for the whole year. And you hear me talk about preparation. This group of players had the preparation because they went to Bangladesh on the 18 tour. The tour South Africa is the 18 tour. And at least 10 or so of the 15 players that went to Australia were on those 18 tours. So those guys were together all the time. That's what I mean by preparation, right? So I believe that even though they were inexperienced, that they would do quite well. Did I think that they would go and win the series against Australia? I would be naive to believe that they would go into Australia in their backyard and win the series. But I felt that group of players would be able to, hold their own, and some of them come back with their reputations enhanced when other people were saying that they would be disgraced and would be slaughtered. I felt because of their preparation. The same reason I'm thinking now of the lack of preparation for the World Cup, why West Indies may suffer as a result. The preparation for those players enabled them to be, one, competitive in Australia, and then to win a game. We know the performance of Shamar Joseph in that test was exceptional, but he also got support, from the batters, the Kirk McKenzies and people like Kevin Hodge playing in their first test series, and Justin Graves and Joshua De Silva, etc., etc. So I think it's because of that togetherness that those guys were able to in many ways do the impossible. As you said, win a test match in Australia for 20-odd years. And we had sent over the years top class players and teams to Australia that couldn't do that.
No, it was the first test when you lost by 10 wickets was the 25th defeat out of 30 against Australia. And in that second test, you were 64 for 5. So showed a lot of character.
Yeah, exactly. Could easily have folded. Young guys with no experience could have, said mentally, this is too tough for us. But, all credit to them. They hung in there. And, in the end, they got the result that nobody expected. So, I was really pleased and happy for the young group.
And Shamar Joseph had only played 5 first-class matches before the first test, where he also got 36 runs. And I read somewhere where you were one of the people that spotted him.
Yeah, Shamar Joseph, I spotted. I saw him 3 years ago in Guyana. Saw the potential. Then I was then fortunate that early last year to see his debut matches in first class cricket in Antigua. Obviously, as a selector, then I had to watch the game, so I was able to see. And you could see that he was different to the other fast bowlers we have in the region. He's not a huge guy in terms of build or height. And he's not a typical fast bowler who perhaps wants to bang the ball into the pitch. He's someone that keeps the ball fairly well up to the bowler at a very good pace. Also has a good short ball, and for me, my immediate thought was that here's someone that I believe could have a test future. Was I expecting him to have the same impact as he did in that 2 test series? Perhaps not, but I believe that having seen him in that first class game, wish I went back and spoke with my fellow selector Desmond Haynes, who was watching another game at that time. I told him, I've seen a guy here who just got a 5-wicket haul, and I believe that he is the future of our cricket. He's got pace, he's got control, he's fit. He wants to keep bowling. And I felt then that he was someone that we should look at, and it started from there. And yes, we then picked him to go on the 18 tour to South Africa, which was just before the Australia tour. Again, within the first game or two, first test or so in Australia, South Africa, we picked up another 5-wicket haul. And as a result of that, we picked him a couple of weeks later to go to Australia, and again, picked up a 5 in his first game as well. So, and then what he did really in the second test was Roy the Rover stuff. That was just unbelievable.
Despite a very bad toe as well when he was bowling in the second innings.
Yeah, well, he wasn't expected to actually play in second innings because I spoke to him that morning early, and he said he was only going to go to the ground, but he really wasn't going to be taking part in the action. It was after he got to the ground, and the physio said, "Listen, we need you to play." He didn't have any gear because he didn't come to play. So once they had sorted out his toe to some degree, somebody had to go back to the hotel to get his gear, and then he went out and performed heroically. So, a dream test match for him and a dream series.
Hopefully a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, as long as he can remain fit and focused, there's, he has a very bright future. He will get quicker. I think when he plays more and really and truly believes that, I belong at this level, he will be a handful. He will be a handful. He will need help. I think, once he can have this support of the other bowlers, it's a great weapon to have.
Coming up later in this episode, Roland gives his prediction on the England versus West Indies Test Series, which begins on the 10th of July. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google, Spotify, and now on our YouTube channel. And for racing fans, you will soon be able to catch my interview with Dylan Cunha, the South African trainer now based in Newmarket, who has made a dream start to the turf flat season. Now back to episode 258, Totally Shocked and Disappointed with Roland Butcher. Well, let's move on to your position. You were a West Indian selector until the end of December 2023. I'd like to hear your version of events. Were you surprised when your contract wasn't renewed?
I'm still in shock, actually. I was very, very surprised because there was no indication that it wouldn't be renewed. And why should there be? Because the team was on the up. We were doing extremely well. If you think in terms of the series played throughout the year, that full year 2023, including the two 18 tours, we won 7 series in 2023. Unheard of in West Indies cricket, particularly where we came from. A year previous to that, we were really struggling. So suddenly there were signs that in both tests and white ball that there was something happening. There was a resurgence of performance. So that's what made it really shocking and surprising for me, is that, the senior team is on the up. And no reason given that, contract was not renewed because it came to an end. Obviously, by that time, we would have picked all the teams that needed to be picked, so that the team for the Australia tests were picked, obviously, before my contract had finished. The T20 team was picked, squad was picked for Australia, so was the ODI team were picked. So really no other teams were to be picked until the World Cup. But even in saying that, the squad that we'd assembled for the white ball against India, etc., is pretty much the squad that would be for the World Cup, maybe with 1 or 2 changes, maybe the addition of Shamar, Joseph now, and others, and a couple more. So those teams were picked. I heard some people say that they're going to have, or that the plan is to have a review of the selection policy at the end of June, at the end of the World Cup. I mean, that just so coincides with the end of Desmond Haynes' contract. So that's what I'm hearing. There's some, but I'm not sure why you want to have a review when you're on an upward path. So that's how it was. So my contract was not renewed. Also, along with the likes of Robert Haynes, who was chairman of the youth selection panel, and I was the other selector with him. So his contract was not renewed, which ran out at the end of December. So that left no youth selectors there. And then Travis Dowling, who was with a female selector, obviously his wasn't renewed. And again, there's another void there. So right now, if there's a World Cup team to be selected right now, you've just got Desmond Haynes as a chairman and Sammy as the coach. That's what it is right now. But everything's very quiet here in the Caribbean. Nobody knows what's going on. The likes of Rez Pereira and others are asking, is there a selection panel, etc. It's all very quiet. But yes, totally shocked and disappointed, really, because we've done a really good job. There's no question about that. I can honestly say that I'm perhaps the only selector who, perhaps have been not renewed, contract renewed, when you won the last three series. Don't forget we beat India, T20 series against England, and the 50 over. Two higher ranked teams win back-to-back series. So I can leave with that, with knowing that I went out on a high this year.
So was it a board that made the decision, a group of people?
Well, nobody is saying anything. Persons on the board that I've spoken to, the board said the board didn't know anything about it. Nobody is coming out definitively to say this is the reason, or these are the persons who made this decision. It is still very much a mystery. I think Agatha Christie probably would have to solve this one.
I can tell with your voice how hurt you were, because you were really proud of being a West Indian selector, weren't you?
Yes, and I worked very hard at it. I worked at being the best selector, not just that I could be, but being the best selector. I think with Desmond Haynes, we formed a very good partnership. We worked really close together, and then obviously the relationship we built up also with Sammy as the coach in the white ball section, and then Andre Cooley when it came to the test side. I don't think any of us could have thought that things were not going well and could only get better. So it was a shock to me and a shock to them as well. I don't think anybody really felt that this was warranted or it was coming.
I've read,
but that is life. That is life, and you move on.
I've read that you're calling for a change in the structure of West Indian cricket.
Well, not necessarily calling for a change in structure. I just really put forward a strategic plan for the improvement. I mean, there may be some of the things in that plan already that they are doing, but this is just a wish list of what is required if West Indies is going to make their way back to the top of the tree. So of the 20 things that I identified, it might be that, there may be 12 or so that they haven't done yet that may need the work. But it was just really a strategic plan of what is required if you really seriously want to be the best.
I mean, is finance a major issue, though, for the West Indies with the 15 different communities and the bigger nations taking a bigger slice of the pot?
Yeah, finance is always going to be an issue because, running cricket in the Caribbean is not a simple thing. You can't just get on a bus and get to a game. You're flying, 90 cricketers first class all around the region, hotels, food, etc., etc. It's a huge, huge investment in the game, and that's only at the first class level. Now you've got the females, then you've got the juniors. They've got 15s, 17s, 19s. It requires a huge amount of money to be able to do that, and then you need infrastructure and facilities, and some additional money would help, but it's not only money that will make the cricket better. The money will help in a way, but there are other things that really need to happen to enable West Indies cricket to be certainly move to the top. West Indies is still a place of insularity. It was even said, well, by some persons in high office, you can't have two selectors from the same island because I had Desmond Haynes and myself. That type of thinking still exists within the Caribbean, and that is what's holding back West Indies cricket. That type of thinking, as if because I come from Barbados with Desmond Haynes, Desmond or myself is going to be biased in any way to Barbadians. I mean, the sheer fact that some persons in the higher echelons of the game in the West Indies is thinking in that manner suggests to me really that they shouldn't be there, because I've always prided myself on being totally professional in everything that I do, and there's no way that I would compromise my selection of players. To select, for me, if I'm selecting players for the West Indies, I select the best players. And when I say the best players, the players who will get the job done that you want to get done, regardless of where he comes from. So the idea that people thinking that because you've got two selectors from Barbados, that's compromising the selection is quite scary, really. But yeah, we've got a long way to go. But the money would help in terms of the development of the youth programs and things like that. I think a fair distribution of ICC funds would assist the Caribbean, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Zimbabwe, those type of nations would certainly assist them with the infrastructure to produce better players, players who can now compete at the top level. And at the end of the day, what you do is you raise the standard of world cricket. You won't just have 3 or 4 good teams. If you have 7 or 8 good teams, then that's good competition. But who wants to see England play Australia every year or India? As much as it's top cricket, I don't want to see that all the time. I want to see a competitive series against Pakistan or against Sri Lanka or against West Indies or against Zimbabwe. So certainly West Indies and others need more funding. The funding is there. It just means that the big boys have to take less. Less is not going to make them any weaker because they already have a lot already. Less will just be a recognition that we want the game to grow and not just our individual country's game, but we want the sport to grow globally so that it is competitive.
I agree with you there. I think as a cricket fan, an England cricket fan, you want to be seeing competitive test cricket against different nations every year, not just England playing Australia and India all the time. Are there still the youngsters and the love of the game in the Caribbean?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Listen, cricket is part and parcel of of our heritage. I mean, that's what West Indians know. Kids are still out there playing. I think where they're falling down is obviously the still facilities needs to be improved, pitches need to be improved. We don't have indoor facilities. There's still a lot that needs to happen that the rest of the world have got. That is, the rest of the world is forging ahead. They're spending on research, they're spending on sports science, they're spending on Hawkeye, etc., etc. So we are still trying to produce players in substandard conditions. That's where the leveling up needs to happen, really, so that we can be more competitive. To be quite honest, really, I think West Indies have done reasonably well despite the system, not because of it, despite.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
And is it more A tours, more overseas experience that will help? It sounds like the A tours have helped in the Australian
Most
tours.
definitely. I mean, those A tours are crucial because you're exposing those players, those young players, to the rigors of international cricket. Those tours to Bangladesh and South Africa were so important, not just to the immediate tour of Australia, but they're so important to the development of those players and ultimately to West Indies cricket. That has to continue. There are also other things that need to happen within West Indies cricket. We need a much more competitive first class championship. At the moment, the quality is quite poor. Pitches are not up to standard. Lots that needs to happen there. So we've got to make that a focus area as well, improving the level of first class cricket, and also the amount of first class cricket. It's right now. You're playing 5-6 matches a season. How can somebody who's playing 5-6 first-class matches be expected to compete against Australia and beat them on a regular basis, or England, or cannot happen? It's 5 matches. So it is not like people will say, well, years ago, we had the same 5 matches and we rule the world. West Indies is a cricketing nation, etc. You can't dispute that, but what I would say to them is that yes, but every one of those players was playing first-class cricket in England. So they were playing, 20 plus first-class matches a season, plus all the other tournaments. They had full first-class cricket. These players now don't because of the situation in England where you can only have a certain number of overseas players. And as you know, the focus now on most of the counties now, their focus has been pretty much white ball. So they're interested more in bringing players for white ball cricket. Players come for 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 matches, that type of thing. So West Indian players are not getting that first-class grounding to make them competitive at international level. So yes, the 18 tours are, must increase. There must be more because those are your next international players. So you got to give them every chance to be ready.
And is the number of tests that the West Indies are playing down to finance as well? Because I think you're playing like 7 tests this year, I think.
No, it's not down to finance. Those are down to the ACC future tours, right? The ACC and their members, they set the future tours, right? So England gets the lion's share. They will play each other home and away on a regular basis. And the reason for that is, as you may know, the Future Tours program is such that the home team takes the spoils. So, 5 test series in England, you can do the maths. The amount of money that's made in those test series, England takes a lot. When England goes to Australia, it's a reciprocal thing. Australia takes all the money from the 5 test series plus the ODIs and the T20s. Same thing with India and England, home and away. Same thing, India and Australia, home and away. Now, when you have West Indies playing Australia and West Indies, and you're playing a 3-test series, and the biggest crowd you will get is probably 12 to 15,000, paying 5 to 20 US each over 3-test series. I mean, you don't cover the food bill for the teams, because the touring team, you have to cover their hotels and food and transport, etc. So you make nothing from a series at home, nothing. And that's the same with the Zimbabwe's and the Sri Lankas and whatever. At home, they make nothing, right? When they play away, they make nothing because the home team takes the money and the series are short. So they're falling behind. So the other 3 are getting fat all the time. So the Future Tours is making them rich already. Now, when it comes also to ICC distribution of funds, as you know, ICC make their money from the international tournaments, right? So T20 World Cup, 50 over World Cup, Women's T20 World Cup, Women's World Cup. Those are the tournaments that ICC make their money from. So it's all pooled and then distributed over an 8-year period. But the distribution is, again, discriminatory against the others, because India gets 450 mil out of the pot. Australia get 200 mil. England get 200 mil. The likes of West Indies and the others gets 91 mil. Now, that 91 before would have been 7% they get. So in India used to get 40 odd percent. India relented now, so they're probably taking now between 38 to 40%. West Indies percentage now have gone from 7% to 5%. Now, with that disparity, do you really believe that Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Zimbabwe, Afghanistan, can really be competing seriously with England, Australia, and India. I mean, it beggars belief that that sort of thing can continue to happen in the international cricket. So that whole thing needs to be revamped. The Future Tours program really is a disaster for 90% of the countries. Fantastic for 3.
It doesn't paint a very pretty picture for international cricket going forward.
It doesn't, because ideally what you should want to have 7 or 8 competitive teams that will lift the standard of world cricket. It can't lift the standard or interest if there's only 3 teams. I mean, you saw England, India, were the grounds full? And, that's unheard of in India. People, instead of growing the game by just separating these top teams, I think it's killing the game across the globe. Now, there's also talk about whether they should get rid of the 50-over World Cup. Now, when you do that, you have killed every associate country's dream, because that's the only route they have playing the top teams is 50-over cricket. Most of those associate countries work hard enough, like Ireland and others, to get ODI status, like Nepal and Oman, etc., to get ODI status, which then gets you a chance to play against the big boys. Now, if you take away that, there's no 50-over. What are you going to do to the world cricket at the associate level? You've decimated it. So ICC has a lot to discuss, and they have a lot of answers really to come up with. And really, India, as the new sheriff in town, they have to play a bigger role in leveling the playing field. Instead of taking the most out of it, they need to level the playing field. I mean, I've said it before, I like the model of the NFL. The model of the NFL, again, the NFL makes their money through the pooling of all the teams' rights. So they got 31 teams. So when they sell the rights, they're selling it as NFL, the whole lot. Now that money is equally divided between the 31 teams. So the Miami Dolphins gets the same amount from the pool as the Washington Redskins. What that does is it allows the weaker team to be in the transfer market for the same player as the top team, because they got the same amount of money, right, from the pool. The additional money that the teams make are from what they make within stadium. So the Washington Redskins, they will have their sponsors and their home crowds and merchandising and whatever they make their money. The Denver Broncos does the same. The Cleveland Browns do the same, et cetera, et cetera. But the money from the league allows them to be able to bid for the top player. And they go even one step further in that the bottom teams get the first pick of the players in the draft. So it's not a case of the team that wins the Super Bowl takes the number 1 pick in this year's draft. No, the bottom team can get the number 1 pick, because the idea of the NFL is to level up the playing field so that all the teams are strong. For me, that's a really good model. Cricket doesn't have that model. Cricket still works on the hierarchy. So you've got them here and you've got the rest down here. That's not the way to spread the game. That's something that has to happen in time. And I think India needs to lead the way because they have got the financial clout power at the table to affect any change that they want to have.
Because if we're not careful, international cricket becomes uncompetitive. And even though we all love watching England play different nations, it will come down to England playing India and Australia, and it'll just be franchise cricket all around the world.
Well, that's it. I mean, I don't want to watch that. I mean, I love I love to see the best players playing, and I'd probably watch a few series, but am I going to watch India against Australia 3 times in a year? Definitely not.
Getting back to the field to end this podcast, just wanted to get your thoughts. We had mentioned it very, very briefly on a previous podcast, but the West Indies prospects in England, they beat England on their last series at home, and when they came here in the COVID year of 2020, they did win the first test on that time as well.
Yeah, that would be a much tougher assignment than perhaps before. For a number of reasons. When they come to England in July, our first class season here finishes in the next couple of weeks. So that's early April, season finish. No more red ball cricket until England in July, mid-July, whatever it is. That's a long break of competitive cricket. In between then, all there is the T20 World Cup. So you can prepare as much as you like, practice and this and whatever. It doesn't beat competitive cricket. So that's going to be a disadvantage for West Indians. The plus would be, I think, obviously Kemar Roach will be playing back at Surrey, so he will get match fitness. I think Jaden Seals will be playing at Sussex, so that will help him in terms of his match fitness. Majority of the others are not playing for any counties, so that puts them at a disadvantage. England at home, obviously, are going to be a more formidable team, as you saw last year against the Australians. What a great series that was. So yeah, it's going to be a tough assignment for the West Indies and England. What you got to hope for that is a red hot summer weather-wise to level the playing field up a bit. But it'll be a good learning experience as well at the same time.
It'll be exciting for English fans to see Shamar Joseph bowling.
Yeah, I think English fans would love him because, for me, there's no greater sight than seeing a fast bowler run in and delivering thunderbolts. I mean, if you think back over the past, to watch the likes of the Brett Lees and people like that, it's it brings something to the game. And spectators like that. So to have Mark Wood running in on one end, and I guess if England had Joe Archer doing the same thing, and then West Indies with Shamar Joseph and Azari Joseph, I think fans will really enjoy and identify with that to see that. Fast bowling livens up the game of cricket, not just for the players, but spectators. There's something about fast bowling that spectators can identify with.
If the West Indies could get some runs on the board with their bowling attack, they could test England.
Most definitely. If you got a full, they got a full bowling attack. As I said, you got the two Josephs. Roach obviously in England is a very highly skilled bowler. And then you've got Jaden Seals, who before injury was West Indies' top bowler. In terms of seam bowling, that gives you, bowling with a real edge, bowling edge. And then, Morty, the spinner, is probably, the best spinner around at the moment. So, you certainly have a team that, as you said, if you can put the scores on the board, you can put the England team under pressure, definitely.
And a prediction from you?
How many tests are they playing? Is it 3 test series?
Yeah, 3. Yeah,
3 test series. I'm going to go for, in this one. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to be a boring 1-1 draw. I think England to win the first test, West Indies to win a later test as they become more acclimatized. Series 1-1.
But Ben and Brendan, they don't do draws, do they?
No, they don't. So that'd be the one that they lose. No, it should be a good series. I mean, if the weather's good as well, and the fans, well, I mean, judging by what I've been hearing in terms of spectators, I mean, most of them are sold out already. So that should be a good summer.
Well, thank you again, Roland, for joining me on the Paddock and the Pavilion and talking all things the West Indies. And thanks again for your very frank thoughts on your position as a West Indian selector. Sorry you're not still in that job. I know how much you love being a West Indian selector, and also for your opinions on the current state of international cricket.
Yeah, great pleasure, Stephen. As you know, I'm always happy to contribute to your program, and I'm sure when I'm in the UK, we'll chat, maybe even have a drink.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Sports Social Podcast Network.